My name's Ryan Patch. I'm what's called a cloud solution architect. I work for Microsoft, and more specifically, I work in our financial services industries. It's a market vertical that we put together to specifically work on certain types of customers. I spent my adult life in Omaha trying to avoid working for insurance companies, and I got hired by Microsoft, and they said, "Congratulations, you're going to go work on insurance companies." So it's an interesting space to work in. I think I heard some chatter in the back of the room. These are highly regulated industries. Some of the tightest constraints next to our friend over there that works with DoD, and every customer is a little bit different in that they can interpret their regulations as they see fit. All right, so an insurance company is not just a place that sells risk or risk mitigation. They're also investment companies. So their top level regulators might be the Securities and Exchange Commission and other commodity or financial instrument regulatory bodies. So some of their interpretations are pretty strict. It's a bit like writing a haiku from time to time. And at Microsoft, we make the mistake all the time of assuming that a customer is in their technical posture because that's where they want to be. All right. And these companies have not just the market pressures to compete, they also have regulatory pressures that can take money out of the business faster than any losses or poor performance in the market. So I work on some of our top companies all together. Some of our top 5 Azure companies that spend $12 to $16 million in a month just on our technologies. And it runs the gamut from high performance compute for actuarial modeling, virtual desktops, infrastructure. This demo is a bit funny because I'm labeled as an infra and core specialist, and we're going to talk about serverless development. And I did a demo for one of our customers. They had like an internal IT event a couple years back, and I teamed up with one of our devs, and he showed me this pattern on serverless that I kind of fell in love with. And if you've been around me for a while, almost all of my stories turn into like muffin stories. Like ding, then you get the signal, ding, your muffin's done, so on and so forth when we talk about how we're wiring things together. And so I made a muffin company. And we're going to talk about digital transformation through the lens of Yield Muffin Co. All right, and why they would adapt new technologies to deal with competitive pressures. So if you'd like, I'd like to do it more like a business case study. I don't know if you've done any of this in your formal or informal education, where kind of take a company apart a little bit and talk about where their pressures are, because the technology is the technology. All right, I didn't write any of it. We got engineers, they're super smart. They've been doing this stuff for years. A lot of these things are software and IP portfolios that Microsoft's brought from on-prem and exercised at scale. And they're all shiny and they look great. And it doesn't mean anything to the customer unless it fits in their business context. All right, so we can talk about Kubernetes and these shiny things all day long, but if they're stuck with an on-prem ERP or a CRM system that's obsolete, that's not their first concern, and they're not going to be able to compete with anything because they're really good at running Kubernetes or they're really good at running Exchange. So we can jump right in. I'd like to have as much participation as you feel comfortable with. I'm going to try and draw on this whiteboard here. We'll see how it goes, and hopefully Brett online can chime in here. Oh, let's do this first. This is me. This picture's a lie. We have to update that. This COVIDy beard that showed up there in the last 5 years. It's a very old picture, but that's what I look like on LinkedIn if you're looking for me. So our business case study, we've got this old-timey food manufacturer, right? It's Ye Old Muffin. Oh, I ran out of sign. They make muffins at scale. It's an industrial food producer. They put scores of muffins onto trucks. They distribute them into the supermarkets. They have supply chains that are kind of old and boring, and it's like the stuff that was interesting to the 50s through 80s set that just wanted to get the same thing over and over and over again. So they've been around for years. They had a sufficient market advantage with that infrastructure. All right. They were able to keep competitors out of the market because they're in every market. They can ship you a crate of muffins anywhere in the United States. And it was very hard for other startups to get into the business. They own the relationships with the supermarkets, everything. So this may parallel some of your businesses that you're in. Insurance companies are a lot this way, where they have a legacy dealer network or agent network that was traditionally an asset for them and is now still an asset, but it's a little bit of a liability if they try and do anything that's edgy or direct to consumer. It's going to insult some of those relationships that they built up over the years. So what was once an asset is now creates a little bit of drag for them. So in my scenario, me and my daughter kind of made this up while we were talking about this. Right next door, it's like one of those cartoony stands, right? A lady sets up shop, and she's got YOLO cupcakes. All right. She can put whatever frosting you want on it. She's got a whole array of different cupcakes to start with. She'll fill it with raspberry jam. If you want to get sriracha on your cupcake, she'll make you one on the spot. All right. And this becomes like all the rage. All right. Ye Olde Muffin Co. starts to take a dive, and they're trying to figure out how to respond to these little mom and pop stands that are showing up everywhere. All right. YOLO's at an advantage now because they have a one-to-one relationship with their customers. The customer stands right in front of them and tells them what they want, and then they get it immediately. They don't have to have market research. They don't go to a boardroom. They don't allocate a marketing budget, run it in a test market, decide to retool the assembly line or anything else. They just, somebody says they want it. If they don't have it, they run around the corner to the corner store and they make them what they want. Okay. And this is a rinse and repeat scenario for most of our customers in almost any business. If you've been to the schools today, any of your business classes are going to talk about the average tenure on the S&P 500. It used to be measured in decades, and now it's measured in single years. That's how long a company survives there. So this is helps kind of set up the why of why people are buying stuff from Microsoft, AWS. I'm going to say it out loud in here, Steve. Google, any of the other hyperscalers. This is why they're doing it. They're trying to come up with some sort of competitive advantage or something to shore up their market share. They used to have sufficient privilege in the market, and now they only have necessary skills, right? That's just to participate. So if we look at like an assembly line, I'm going to draw terrible pictures here on my PC. So we have the muffins, all right? They're not even set up. Let's try not to draw too many of these. They're not even really set up to do cupcakes. Okay, they have an assembly line. They have giant machinery. There's ovens. There's workers over here, been doing the same job for 30 years. The tooling is very expensive. All right, so they might talk to a consultant and they say, what do we do about YOLO? We want to do something to head that off. We want that market share. They're selling cupcakes to people who never wanted to eat a supermarket muffin. And the consultant shows up, or the Microsofty person shows up, and they say, well, hey man, you just gotta like get agile and go to the cloud and do the new stuff. All right, this is old. And they're like, yes, we know that it's old. Thank you. We spent $100,000 to have you tell me that my stuff's old. I can't get rid of it. I still am making money off of it. All right. Does it sound like legacy software and systems to anybody? All right. The problem with legacy stuff is it's not broke too much. and it still makes money in some way, shape, or form. So it's very hard to shut off our old infrastructure and our old technologies in a way that lets us compete in a modern market. There's our oven with our flames. All right. So one of the things that we can do with our technology, right? These assembly lines are like our on-prem infrastructure. We've got a network and there's a bunch of switches and we put a bunch of servers together. And most everybody has seen this linear sort of processing here, right? Where there's maybe a frosting hopper and a fill gun comes in over here, and the cupcakes are going to go by one. And step one has to happen before step two can happen, before step three can happen. And it's not very agile. And if I want to change something in this assembly line pattern, it's very, very fragile to do that. I go and mess with the VM. I try and displace it with one thing or the other, and my whole line gets disrupted. So what I am interested in exploring is the pattern that we're talking about is the competing consumers. So in our scenario on the IT side, we're presented with a business problem, right? I need to be able to get the orders. I need to be able to get data about the orders. I need to have better tracking of the orders, and I need to retool from a place that has an ERP system that's monolithic, right? It's linear. And it's slow. I worked for an industrial manufacturer, and they built these giant machines that had 100,000 parts on them. So for them to make a change, they had to go through and go into these. It's not ERP, it's CRM. Or it is ERPs. Enterprise Resource Planning. They had to go through and like reassemble a whole bill of materials. Right? You couldn't just say, hey, why don't you swap this part out for this part? It was a monumental effort to make changes in these places, but it still ran the business. So what I put together was a way to take our assembly line, the tools that we have, the ordering systems that we have, the monolithic things that are what I would consider to be contextual in nature. And what I mean by that is it's mostly non-differentiated value. All right. If you're really good at running an email server, your customers don't care. If you're really good at running your ERP server, like you got the best one in the country, it doesn't matter to them. You've made zero impact. You can improve that all you want, but unless you get a business value out of it, it doesn't mean anything. So if I don't get a capability like more agility, flexibility, responsiveness. If I haven't updated any of those things with my technology, it's kind of a wasted investment. I've spent money on, again, something that's necessary but not sufficient. So I want to do re-envision our cupcake factory. We're still going to have to take orders from a traditional system. Maybe we got a website that's customer facing and we kind of repurpose some of our tooling. So the first step I wanted to do was to be able to take our batch and serialize it. So I took our, this one. So I use Logic apps a lot. You might see some of my C# here today, and you'll understand why I use Logic apps a lot. It's something that's faster for me, and I'm an okay-ish C# dev on my best day. I also like the visual representation that we get in here. So this is very basic. I've taken and in about 10 minutes, I build a public endpoint, and it's a place that I can deliver my old-timey batch files, right? I have 162 orders that showed up through my old system, and we're going to figure out how to ingest them into the new system. The new system is tailored to the custom cupcake market. Okay, it's a one for everybody, and we're not going to be making packages of 24 muffins anymore for this market. So what I've done is I take a let's go back here to our serialized. I take a JSON file, and it's got an array of orders in it. All right, it fell out of some system. It probably had to get translated into JSON from XML or some CSV or something else like a 4GL database system, which used to be called NextGen, and is probably too old for some of the people in this room anymore. So I take an array of orders, I deserialize them, and then for each one of them, I'm going to have to put a wrapper around it, because the original legacy order doesn't have these special things on it. It doesn't have a metadata markup on it. So what I do is I package the legacy order. Each one of them goes inside of our new wrapper object, okay, which is a JSON wrapper that exists outside of it. I put a fresh order ID on it. That's for our system, and I start my tracking right away. I need to know on the spot when this cupcake has started its journey. And what I do is stick that onto a service bus. All right, and there's something very interesting that happens inside of here. We'll talk a little bit about the server bus or the service bus and what it's for, but I'm able to sort of wrap this package in metadata. I can put processing information on the outside of it without touching the inside of the order. Okay, because it's an old legacy thing, and at the end of the pipe, I'm going to maybe need to get this old legacy order back out of it. So I want to preserve that, and I don't want to bother it too much, but I need it to go onto my contemporary conveyor belt here, the new one. So I take the compose function here. I put my legacy order inside of it. I put a new GUID on it, and then this is metadata that is only really aware, or it's only utilized in the service bus system, okay, and the interpretation of what's been worked on and what hasn't been worked on. So we fire all those off, and they show up on a topic. So my service bus is basically, it's going to be my elastic queue. This is a place I can dump 1,000 transactions a second on it. All right, and when I want to do something with a message that showed up, I make a subscription. Okay, and so this guy over here, he's the froster. This guy over here is the filler. And I have a labeler, and I have a packer. Now with my old technologies, all I could do is wait for the muffin to show up, and then the froster's going to get it. And when he's done with it, then the filler's going to get it. And when he's done with it, maybe somebody can do the label, and we have to wait for the slowest member of our team to accomplish their job. So I'm rate limited. The fastest this system will move is the slowest person that I have, which is kind of backwards. So in the subscription, we get new messages, or the service bus, we get new messages all the time. And around them, the contents of them is the message. And the wrapper on the outside of it is going to act like a checklist. Okay? Each one of these teams, labeling, frosting, filling, we could bring new technology in to do these. If you think about an assembly line where it's just kind of running along, and I would have to put a whole entire new machine on to do frosting and change a batch of frosting to go from one flavor to the other, what if I could just take all those things that needed to get frosted, and on day one, maybe I can just go cart them over to a room. And I got 12 people in there, and they're just putting custom frosting on. All right, and that's successful. And I can bring another technology in. Maybe I get a custom frosting machine. Maybe I hire somebody to make me one. All right, so I can swap technologies out with this service bus. I don't care who comes and gets it. It's a technology agnostic message queue, and its only job is to be reliable. All right, it's an elastic spot where I can dump things, and if somebody comes and gets them, that's great. The work's going to get done. If somebody doesn't come and get them, the service bus doesn't care. It's eventually going to fill up and start deleting things, but it allows us to decouple these jobs that don't need to behave in a linear fashion. All right, so the factory's still got to make muffins, right? That's still going to happen. We're going to make a bunch of them, set them off to the side. But when an order comes in, I want to take one of them and I want to customize it and do all the jobs as fast as possible. All right, so that's where my subscribers come in. So in this version, we're going to publish to what's called a topic. So we have queue technology, which you're going to decide is first in or first out, and you just take whatever shows up on the queue. All right, that can be subject specific. In this one, we're dumping a lot of related items into the hopper, and then the first one to come get it, and I don't care if it's a froster or a filler, I do care if it's the labeler or the packager, but the two competitive ones, the filler and the froster, they can do it whenever they want. Right? I can frost a cupcake if it hasn't been filled, and I can fill a cupcake if it hasn't been frosted. These are two asynchronous jobs. They don't have to happen at the same time. So what we do is we have a shared queue between all four of these jobs. And in the filler subscription, I'm going to write a filter. All right, so the metadata, the stuff I put around the order, has a characteristic. It says filled equals 0, frosted equals 0, labeled equals 0, and toppings. We don't have toppings yet. I was still putting this stuff together last night, so there's no topping worker. All right, but I can add sprinkles on later on. I write a new subscription, I bring the sprinkle cannon in, and I've got a sprinkler. It doesn't have to disrupt what I can do today by waiting for what I want tomorrow, because the work is so decoupled. So the services that are going to hook up to this subscription are only interested in the orders that have not been filled, right? With raspberry jam, pudding, whatever you like to put into your cupcake, right? YOLO lets you put whatever you want on it, the competitors. We're going to have some constraints on it because we're not going to be able to stock all those fillings, but it's going to allow for an assortment, and I don't have to make 5,000 of them anymore to get one cupcake to somebody. Okay, so I build a service. Let's see if I can find my guy. So this one in particular is a function app, and this is the terrible C# code. I am the best at taking like 6 examples, Frankensteining them in together, and kind of making it work. So don't look too close here. This has a lot of problems in it, very much. I'm the infra guy, not the dev guy. But what I've done is I hooked this function app up. This is .NET, .NET Core, I think. I subscribe to the service bus topic, and I subscribe to the one of interest to me, which is the filler subscription. And so what happens then, the activity of this code is bound to the trigger of the service bus queue. So as soon as there's a message on there that meets my subscription filter criteria, it goes ding, I got a thing for you. And the function app can work as fast as it's able to. It'll grab as many of those off of there as it can, and it depends on the context in which you're running the thing. So with this one here, when I'm debugging even, I can actually attach to the function app runtime, or I can run it as a standalone on my desktop. I can run it in Docker, and it'll actually go out and consume off of the service bus. And what this worker does is it has a whole bunch of commented out stuff that didn't work. What we do is we have a function where we are going to do our fire our filling cannon at the cupcake. All right, and it takes the requested amount and it applies it, and then it measures actually how much it got on there. All right, so it's looking for a tolerance of an order of magnitude or 3 orders of magnitude, depending on which one and which tolerance level we've set for this particular worker. I could have a completely different worker off to the side that has different levels, and some will come out really overly filled and some might come out underfilled, but it won't matter. So the job that this one does, it takes the message off the queue and it destroys it. Right? That message is no longer available for anybody else. All right, because you don't want to have 2 fillers operating on it at the same time. You can't both have the same cupcake at the same time. So it grabs it off. Guy or the machine's putting the filling in, and then when it's done, this it sets the metadata, the filled property, to 2, and it makes a copy of the message and sticks the message right back on the queue. So if you picture this like a hopper here, instead of having one big long assembly line of stuff now, that really got more like a round table that all the work is on. And anybody or anything, this one's here. Maybe I got a robot down here that does this job with my old-timey arms, right? He's got a strong pincher. Maybe I hire a special machine to come in and do it the next day. It won't matter. All the work is here. And whenever it sees oh, these are bad cupcakes today. It's a little hard to draw here. Whenever it sees a piece of work that needs to get done, it grabs it, takes it away, and it puts it right back. So at any given time in this hopper, I've got cupcakes that are just muffins. They haven't had anything done to them. I've got cupcakes that have had frosting applied to them, but no filling, and so on and so forth. They all come back to the same communal area, and whether it's been filled or not, the froster, which is basically the same boilerplate code, shows up. It grabs the cupcake, deletes the message, it's destroyed, does its work, and then puts it right back into the hopper again. Okay, and both of these functions I have set up here, and we're actually monitoring them. And oh, boo on the name on that one. So this one up top here is .NET Core, and it's deployed to a function app. A function app is essentially a runtime that we operate. I don't want to, sort of ruin the magic, but we run VMs and scale sets and stuff at scale, and we put IIS on them. If anybody remembers this, if you hosted ASP pages or anything like that, we run the IIS, we run the Apache for you, and then you say what you want to have done. Like, here's my code, here's the SLAs that I want on the code, and you do it, Microsoft. I'll pay you extra. So these ones in particular, the Linux one I think is running on like a cheap app service plan. So I give it like $14 a month, and it has kind of like a dedicated CPU and RAM SLA that it meets for me all month long. I run the same the frosting code, which is almost identical. It runs in a Windows context. All right, so one's on IIS, the other one's on Apache. And the reason I really wanted to flex on that is I worked for an industrial ag manufacturer, and we were trying to figure out how to do smart stuff with the machinery that we were pouring out. And we wanted it to be aware of the fields and crops, and we tried to make this beautiful data pipeline. We made geospatial data platform, analytics, and everything. But we probably spent 18 months and I don't know, $1 million, like making all these decisions about what the technology was going to be. We picked R, We we went and hired people that did very specific R programming capabilities. It's a statistics language more than it is a programming language, because we wanted to draw these beautiful data structures that could be enriched with all of our observation data, satellite, weather, the whole thing. And I don't know, 4 or 5 years after I left that project, it dawned on me one day that, like, with this kind of pattern, I didn't have to care about any of that stuff. I didn't have to care if somebody got my muffin done in R or its predecessor S or Java or Python or anything. I could have gone out to Fiverr, and as long as I had the code to run on this this paradigm and decoupled from the rest of the system, I didn't really care. So I wanted to bring that ethos back in when we go and talk to companies about how to take, you know, what you have and be able to modernize it. You don't have to throw everything out. You don't have to get the whole new technology stack all at one time, and you don't even have to have a homogeneous set of development teams. If you got a Java team, have them write the Java stuff. If you've got a .NET team, have them do that. JavaScript's all you got, we can do that too. You can run any of that in any of these contexts, and it doesn't have to be a wedding ring, right? That's the real value proposition of the cloud. Like getting married is really easy. Anybody can get married. You can go out and pick out the ring and everything. You do that. Getting divorced takes like 2-3 years, and all your stuff is in shambles, and by the time you get your car back, you know, it doesn't even run anymore, right? There's a lot of problems. There's a lot of messiness with getting rid of stuff. Okay, so the cloud model is a rental proposition, right? Everybody knows how to buy servers. That's easy. I say what I have today, and then I just double it and tell my boss that's what I need. All right, getting rid of it after 4 or 5 years, or only 2, or when you want to switch from R to Python, is the expensive proposition. So I wanted a way to still make work, integrate the old systems, right? The muffin company can still bake muffins all day long and sell that. And then we can take some of them over here and try this startup type venture. And we don't have to make big investments in it. The 2 workers that are here, the function apps, essentially run on a consumption plan. And if you're not aware of that, you only pay when it's running. Okay, it's the ultimate rental model. You throw your code at it, and you say what kind of SLAs you want. And here's the bindings now. When I first started on this, you couldn't even like point and click at the bindings. All right, you had to write all the .NET code. Right now, I just walk out to the portal and I say, hey, when a service bus message shows up, you're going to run this code. And I click another button for me, and it says, my other spot here. It says, go ahead and point this at a repo. So it's all wired up to my GitHub account now. So I'm on my editor. I make a change. I commit. I sync, and this thing. Make sure this doesn't have a lot of my boo-boos on it. This thing will automatically, in response to that, just publish a new version of it. All right. And what that means is my filling team can evolve while my frosting team is still doing stuff the old way. It's taking them a little bit longer. They don't have to move in tandem anymore. All right. And if my frosting team isn't quite carrying its weight, I can turn 2 of them on. All right. If we're sitting around waiting for frosting on these cupcakes all day long, or it takes them a long time to process this one widget, I can scale the services either in place, or in this pattern, I can just bring new subscribers to the situation. If I have a function app, I can also write a logic app. I could have an on-prem server that's curling the queue and pulling orders down that way. I don't have to disrupt any of the work to bring new capacity on board, because my holding pattern for the messages is elastic. So I make my fillers, I make my frosters. They're allowed to run in tandem. And oops, that's not the one. So one of the things that that YOLO is doing. We looked at the customers, right? They get their cupcake. What's the first thing a millennial or younger does when they get their custom cupcake experience? Gonna take a picture of it and put it on I don't know what the hell's cool anymore. TikTok. They're gonna take a TikTok video with it. Instagram. I'm so old that I'd probably sound ridiculous saying any of these things, but it's about the experience. If you had the experience and you didn't demonstrate it to anybody, it didn't even happen. All right, it doesn't count. I went to Disneyland, but nobody saw it on Facebook. Doesn't even count anymore. Nobody saw me with a TikTok of it. It just doesn't have the same value to me, right? So it's the experience plus the brag about it. So one of the other things I wanted to do, because I have so much spare time in my life, I wrote a labeler. All right. So this labeler, oops, let's go. We're gonna need to go talk to our topics first. So, like I said, I gave this talk, well, not this talk, but we gave this demonstration some time ago, and there was really only the filler subscription. It's the same message queue. The filler's been lovingly filling cupcakes with jams and puddings for a year and a half. And to get my homework done in time for this evening, I had to build the froster, which is a replica of the filler. And then I built a labeler. So the label subscription is going to make a picture of the cupcake that was ordered. Okay, so it's going to take all the ingredients that you asked for. And like as soon as it's done, the 2 jobs have been done, it's going to snap a picture and it's going to be ready to go for social media. I'm not going to take a bunch of pictures of cupcakes. And another technology, it's going to sound like I'm shilling, but it's probably because I am, lets me be the lazy person I was always meant to be. So I hooked up to that subscription my labeling tool, and what I do is I fire this guy off. Excuse me. I fire it off at OpenAI, right? GPT. This one I think is a GPT-3 model. It's not the chat one. It's not the new hotness. I'm not that cutting edge. But I take the order details and I give OpenAI a prompt that says I want a picture of a muffin with the characteristics. So if it's wheat, it says I want a wheat muffin filled with, let's say raspberry was in that order, raspberry filling, and frosted with whatever frosting's on there. And I fire that off and it makes me a custom label for my cupcake. All right. So I have a picture instantly of that happening. And this label subscription has a SQL statement that's a compound. All right, because I need it to be frosted and filled before I can take that picture of it and brag to all my friends about my $12 cupcake that I got. Ooh, I thought I was going to go over on me, Steve. All right, so that subscription has 2 requirements. It hasn't been or actually 3. It hasn't been labeled, the frosting's done, and the filling's done. I got to take a picture of it now. And then after that's complete, we have one more. Oh, let's go look at the, I suppose we can look at the technical bits here. Is this a little too heavy on the business side? Are you getting enough nerd time? You want more nerd time over there, and I can tell. He's on the phone. All right, so this is no, that's not an HTTP. That's my tagger. So the labeler is subscribed to our message queue. It's the same one. We have to actually take the parse function, turns the text into a consumable object inside of this logic app. And what that means is all these key value pairs then become available to me inside of the operation here. The logic app is a function app under the hood, and it just runs this design time environment. So you're designing it's an open source project called I think it's JSON workflows, and it's just executing that inside of a function app for you at scale. So you essentially put this workflow together. It's in the back end, it's a JSON object that you're making through a designer. If you want to write the JSON, you can do that. Right here, we have that for you. This guy seems really excited about writing JSON all day. Or you can use the design-based experience. It's whichever one you want. But at the end of the day, we're making a JSON object that's going to get interpreted every time the workflow runs. So we have to take our message. We got to get the guts of the order out so that we can deliver it. This is a RESTful action. So it'll call an HTTP endpoint. There's a whole bunch of integration tools. This operates in a decoupled fashion. It has the workflow runtime running on the function app, and then adjacent to it, you're going to build connector objects. And you can build custom connector objects. You can just use Swagger dots on your own APIs and have them be a part of this workflow the same way that these other objects are showing up. But I need to make a connector to a service. This one happens to be a generic HTTP, so I can call any RESTful endpoint basically on the planet, as long as it's not blocked for my use. Don't steal my OpenAI bearer token there. I handed the payload, and then the results come back out, and I have to parse that out. And what I do then is take the URL of the picture and stuff that into the metadata of the order. So it makes me a beautiful picture. I just take the first one that shows up because I'm dangerous like that. I'm not gonna inspect them all. And the order goes back into the hopper. So now I got a cupcake. It's got a little ticket next to it. It says it's been frosted, it says it's been filled, it says it's been labeled. And the last thing that needs to happen then is to get the thing ready to ship. Again, because I was working on my homework today, I made another logic app, made another subscription. This subscription goes back to the hopper, and it's only looking for cupcakes that have been labeled. Okay, so we still have some dependencies, but some of these jobs are slower than others. The shipping and the labeling ends up being quite slow, and I had to actually back off of the image quality because I was getting some collisions when we're writing the blob storage. So what this does, this is a fully prepared order. It grabs it. It has to digest the message content and the properties, and then it does a get out to the endpoint provided by OpenAI. It's DALL-E. I said ChatGPT before, but it's the DALL-E blob store. It pulls the file across the wire, and then it packages it up and puts it into blob storage. It's now ready to deliver. Okay, and you can use, that's kind of where the story ends. We take all the order specs, everything that we got, everything that was done with it, and we package that up along with the picture, and we drop the picture off with it also. So there's a whole lot of talking without anything actually running. We're gonna run some orders through here. If you guys really want to geek out, we can make some orders. If you want to make a custom cupcake order, I'll get crazy with you. Who's got questions while I'm copying and pasting? There cannot be zero questions.
To the message it's
gone. It's gone. So when I go do demos, I talk a lot about security and everything else. And then when it's demo time, I'm like, but you'll take care of that later on. The right thing to do, all of these workflows are capturing copies of this data all the way along. So it's actually traceable. If I'm putting together a robust version of this, instead of just seeing like the order wrapper and all the completion points and the artifacts, there's actually going to be a detailed log of every time I took custody of that message, because it's a destructive message queue. When you take it off, and if you have a problem, it's not going back on because I wrote it. Instead of doing a peek at the message, deciding if you're successful or not before you, it's what's called completing the message. I just go for it. So you can do a try catch on it essentially in any of these contexts. And if it doesn't work out, you send it back. The service bus also has a dead letter capability, which you would turn on. If you get a message across and it doesn't meet one of the filter criteria, if you picture that our hopper here, it's just swirling around there forever and nobody picks it up. So you can set an expiration date for that message. You really want to capture everything that failed. We're very rarely interested in success, oddly enough, in IT. I don't always need the signal that tells me it's working, right? It's like the fire department. If you're hearing from me, it's because something's broke, not because your building didn't burn down today. So I try to capture all those signals. Most of if you've seen any of my other work with Logic App demos, usually right at the top, whatever you get in here, I'm actually gonna do a blob storage actions. The very next thing, I take the message and just dump it off to the side. And you're essentially going to use a GUID or a correlation ID all across the process. In this one, I think I actually take a bit of the legacy order number, and that's salted in there with the GUID in some way. And I think we use it as the identifier for the blobs there. So we'll go. Who else has questions besides Steve? I paid him to ask that one.
Framework for the logic apps.
Now, are you talking from a dev perspective or an SRE/ops perspective? You can run them in a container now. So it's actually I catch a lot of crap from folks. They're like, I'm a big boy dev and I don't have to use a Logic app to do anything. And I'm like, I'm sure you could write the C# code or the Java all day long, but look at all the stuff that's already here. There's like 300 connectors. Like if you want to write something to blob, if you are really interested in doing something the hard way, I would challenge you to go out and try and interact with our blob storage and just use the pure API calls. Because everything in Azure has a RESTful API. I can snap anything into an existence with a curl command if I want. And the blob storage is one of the hardest to interact with from my perspective because there's so many steps to it. So we write you nice SDKs, and I think almost any language. Most of them are provided by Microsoft to make it easier to interact with. And so any of those things, like if you want to talk to SharePoint, if you want to talk to any of our other native stuff, I'm using it a whole ton now for Azure tooling. I've got a similar pattern where I consume all the subscription activity because everything in Azure emits an event. Whether you want to consume it or not is up to you. So all the subscription events that come flying out of there, I put them into another service bus, and I subscribe to the topic that's like all Microsoft network APIs. All right, and I can do that in like 5 minutes. All right, and I challenge anybody to try and get that C# code out and get that going just as fast. You're going to have a difficult time. But testing, sorry, there was a long ways to go. Testing, you can run all of them in a container now. So they're actually fully friendly with CI/CD in that you're really just making a JSON object at the end of the day. The Visual Studio, the full-blown one, has like the full interactive graphic environment if you want to do that. Most people are kind of using them to like churn out multiples. So they kind of get a pattern that works and then they parameterize it. Then they're just kind of barfing out JSON objects all day long. So you can test them locally without going to the cloud, running them in a container environment, which gets really, really weird because you're running essentially our app service in a container, which is running a function app, which is then running a logic app inside of that. And you can do all your automated testing that way. For an environment that's in prod, I highly recommend implementing like a runner type pattern. So you're not interested so much in like this server had a hard time, or it says that it's status 200, but nothing's writing to the database. So what you're really interested in getting is what is the customer experience across this technology stack, and am I getting a performant result off of that? So you run like a John Q sample, phone number 999, and you run that periodically to see how your service is doing. And if this is part of your technology stack, then you're sort of testing it in prod as it goes along.
With the logic apps for a lot of different people, and being able to hit so many different types of services. I have a couple of customers that I worked with in the past that they had a lot of developers that they wanted to knock out these simple little automated processes that they could call from teams. And so I they wanted to spin up like a Salesforce like dev environment or something like that. So then they would just mention something in a specific team and it would spin it up, and then it would let them know at the end what all login information, everything was for. I use it in my company for a couple different things, especially with teams and doing chat ops things. It's so quick to develop that rather than trying to create an app and then have team talk to some other app or function somewhere.
Yep.
And I can call anything within Azure pretty much with that logic app.
So in most of my companies would rather die than run the logic app in the public cloud. Okay, so there's a way to we can do VNet injection with that now, and bring it all in-house. But this is the fastest and cheapest way to fail at something. I can't overstate the value of this enough. You can go turn a thing on, and like this like little cupcake throwaway demo here is a perfect example. You can invest like tens of dollars, and if a customer is using it, and if they're using it so much that your boss calls you up and is like, what the hell is going on with this function app and this logic app? I'm spending thousands of dollars on this. And you tell them, well, it costs more per transaction because it's serverless and Microsoft does all this stuff. You've actually proved your point with it, that it is worthwhile of more investment. You might take that out of the logic app or take it off of the serverless and go build a more robust version of that has more controls on it. But you can find out if you have a winner or not. If you do this with legacy implementation where you're buying servers and investing all these dollars, and it's a loser after like 2 years, they want to know where that $500,000 went. This is a way to get a $6,000 bill in a month and be like, oh my goodness, we should do something about it. And the thing that you should do about it is to figure out how to incorporate it or to take it to a more robust version of production.
I look at it as an integration platform, not as a development platform. So which I compare it with BizTalk essentially. So
it does have
I don't compare it with a .NET based system that if I can test it the same way I can test a .NET based system. But what I've done in the past is the systems that my logic app interacts with, I can write some dummy test cases, testing what input I have provided and getting the expected outcome or not. And it's kind of a black box testing because I cannot literally go and test what's happening inside my logic app. But at least it gives me some perspective of if it's behaving the way I expect it to do.
Yeah.
And to the JSON that you were mentioning, it works wonderfully till the time the workflow are simple. But I have really struggled when workflows become vast. You have to debug to run into those JSONs, even in the CI/CD.
Logic apps are like whatever sort of clickbaity video game you've ever played, because there's only ever like one more turn. Like I just need to put one more action in here, and I've actually on this one I got a little my shipper that I built. I got a little greedy and was trying to have it dump the picture and the work order in the same process, and it's getting conflicting errors because it's trying to still like write the picture at the same time that it's writing the JSON file. So it's a little jittery. That should be orchestrated into a separate process thread, so it doesn't have those conflicts in there. The other, it is integration framework. I think most of them are gone, but there used to be a lot of BizTalkie bits in there. You would get under the cover and look at some of the decorators and some of the URLs and stuff, and they were still using old BizTalk nomenclature. So it is heavily used as an integration framework. And I mean, if you've ever had this job to do on-prem where you've got, like an Oracle server over here and it's generating files, you had to call, in my company, is a guy named Ben, to get him to update the Samba cron job that would come by and pick the file up and move it to the other workflow that's like on the Windows side of the house. This is the thing, I don't have to call anybody and I can get that done in 5 minutes and not have to write any code or anything because the connectors are all there.
I think run history is also a great
Mhm.
way to test if your logic apps are working.
Yeah, and you get the whole history out of it. It's got a full. Here, I'll show you my shipping one. I'll be vulnerable and go first. here's my shipping one that has intermittent failures. It is actually writing all of them. It's just not getting the signals back very well. But this is the full history, and you can actually take the job that showed up here. You can inspect. Let's take a loser. You can take the one that failed. You go and inspect what the error is, and you can actually just hit the resubmit button, and it'll rerun whatever is contemporary in the version, and it'll rerun it with the same inputs for you. So it has that capability. I didn't mean to turn it into a logic app love story, but it's one of my favorite things. The other interesting thing is that all the steps that are outlined here will attempt to run concurrently. So they'll spin up a worker for each individual step there. So in actuality, when you encounter a for loop in there and it's got 10 objects that got spit out of a previous step, it'll try and execute all 10 of those at the same time. It actually has a very high concurrency in it that you would have to write into any of the other contexts except for maybe logic app. So we're gonna yeah. How do I pay for it? This is why it's really underutilized because there's no like bucket of licenses. There's no like generally units of consumption unless you're already into it and you're gonna like get some dedicated runtime. It charges on a per action. It's like a 1,000th of a cent or 100th of a cent, but an action is not just each one of those things that's listed in there. If you do a for loop, each pass through the loop is an action, and then each step in on the inside of the loop is an action. So I had a guy for a large insurance company. He was trying to do Excel stuff with it, and I was like, Kevin, don't do it. And he's like, nah, it's fine. And what happened was he got into a loop, and it was calling, I think, some log analytics or something. But every time it was calling it, he was calling the whole set, like the whole historical data, and then iterating through it. So each iteration is a fraction of a cent. And so he got into an exponential growth issue with it. And I think he got like a $7,000 bill for it. So what I usually tell people is if you pass probably 6 or 7 steps, like it's time to figure out how to orchestrate. You probably need an orchestrator and then workers outside of it. So that's one to kind of catch it and divide the work up and send it into individual processes, and stay away from the loops for anything that's got a possibility of growing by itself. Right. So if you have a dynamic data source that it's going to, and Jim from accounting is going to dump who knows how much personal history into there, that's not a cost you would have control over because somebody could bring that to your runtime.
I think Logic App now supports a new pricing as well, where we can run it in an app service plan level.
Yeah, you can run it. They're actually deprecating all of the old dedicated infrastructure. So the ICE, I think it was an isolated service environment was what it was called. That was our integrated, yeah. No, it was ICE, that one was ISE. Okay. Integration. That was our sort of first generation network injection technology. And the way that we've done it with private endpoints and private links now, almost all of that stuff is kind of obsolete, and it's built off of a technology stack and certain APIs that are sunsetting. It was built on the old cloud services model. If you've been familiar with that, all of that stuff is going dark later this year, unless you get on the extended service, which is then just going to be us like running it virtually for you with not a whole lot of service.
Yeah, one thing to note, the consumption, you got a time of about 5, I think, minutes.
It follows function app rules. Yep,
Yeah.
that's what it's based on.
But then,
Huge.
but then you've got on the service, and it's much more dedicated.
I was trying to figure out this longer thing, like you said, with the for loop or some other continuous thing like that. This thing could be probably like mutual ejaculation in seconds.
You can set scale limits on it now, I believe. It's now running on our contemporary app service technology. That's what you actually buy if you want to get an isolated or an isolated resource. You used to have to do this real ham-fisted network integration where you're overriding a bunch of rules and static routes and everything. And now it's pretty plug and play. You say you want the ACE, so that's the sort of naked version, the app service environment, and you can get that same context with your logic apps, just running the logic apps piece of it, and then you'll only exhaust your scale that you've asked for with that plan. So in the consumption-based plan, there, allegedly you could just go on forever. It would be pretty hard to have that go on and on unnoticed forever.
I'll just say another kind of best practice, right? Just in general for any of the Azure services around, especially if you're playing with these, is to set up cost alerting and all of that, right? On your subscription or resource group that you're doing these type of tests. You don't know what the heck is going to happen. At least, before you get a $7,000 bill, which you thought was going to be $7, at least go, within a couple hours that, oh my God, I've already spent my $7 that I thought I was going to spend on a month. And
yeah, and if
shut down stuff.
and if you're wrangling an entire enterprise, that's usually going to be like a policy object that gets implemented across the estate, so that you might get 500 alerts in a month, but it's at least on, and somebody can say they've done it. So we did a whole lot of talking. We didn't make any cupcakes yet. So I'm going to run the thing tip to tail. We've got, I don't know, 4 orders in here. This was brand new that I found here in the last few months. You can just run the trigger and put your own JSON body in there. So this is the order wrapper, takes all the old legacy items, digests them into individual orders. It goes onto our service bus. Oh, we missed all the fun logs going across there. And then each one of these is running the Windows Froster and the Windows Froster here and the Linux filler there. And it goes all the way through the pipe. It gets labeled, it gets filled, frosted, and then we come out the other end here into our shipping department. So we've got these GUIDs that were generated with each of our orders. Inside of each package is customer name and one of our DAL-E generated cupcakes. This one was pretty gross, I think. We can inspect the order. Web here. So this is our legacy order. This is what the object looks like that we were manipulating. This is the legacy order data. It's everything that the customer provided through the legacy interface. It showed up into our order wrapper. And then everything here has been added to the outside of that to talk about, well, this is our custom GUID. And then it says when we got the order, no, it's not formatted that well. So we have our order time and date that it showed up, and then the actual application. So up here we had a request for 12.6 units of frosting. 12.649 was the actual applied. You're capturing new data on this workflow, and same thing with the filling. And we got all the date and time stamps for that. So we had a wheat berry with elderberry filling and pistachio frosting for Mr. Gray here. We lost Brett. And then let's see what it looks like. There's my generated cupcake picture, made up completely, ready for Instagram on there. So it's pretty interesting. It's non-deterministic. So you can run the thing over and over again. There's only really 4 orders, but I haven't seen a duplicate cupcake. Yeah, this one was lemon, I think, with strawberry frosting. We can see what's new here in the hopper. Let's check one more here. Let's see what Arthur got. Let's see, he's got the strawberries again. So it's not bad for drawing cupcakes, and I didn't have to make any of the content, and that's what we have for the ye old Muffin Co. We turned it into Yamco. We took our technology portfolio and applied it to a business problem like an architect would, and created a way to repurpose a lot of our old tooling without throwing away our legacy value proposition, but able to run a pilot disruptor within our own company to try and compete head to head with people we would otherwise not ever compete with. So that's the whole case. Anybody have any other questions or anything? This is a very quiet audience.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Don't tell chat GPT can write your case studies.
So that's a fair question. We're seeing a lot of companies not really want the generative piece, but they're very interested in the summarization pieces of it. So if you're an insurance company, you get like reams of documents that come in. You experience what's called the first notice of loss. And so that's like a lawyer telling you, hey man, your driver hit my driver, here's the medical situation, here's the car situation, and here's what I'm demanding for you to make me whole. And that's kind of freeform stuff. Is not necessarily a website form that somebody's filling out. It's the lawyer telling you that they want to see you in court. And they do that however they see fit. So having the summarization piece of it as sort of a fast lane to getting to the guts of the information incoming is like an immediate value add. And you don't turn it loose and you don't just take it as gospel, but you would want to hear what the summarization is and then be directed to the point in the document that you're making this assessment off of. So those types of capabilities are immediately marketable, and there's a lot of companies that are interested in that piece of it. Anything else? I feel like we talked about logic apps too much. Does anybody want to hear about Service Bus? I get super excited about that one too. Or function apps, not so much. How are we for time? We're good? And you need me to fill any more time or? Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, Stump the Chump. What do you got? Nothing? Okay.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
Thank you.